Which flyby do you think sounds better? You tell me. The Aeroplane Heaven's P51 Mustang D with its Packard Merlin V12 and absolutely iconic airframe deserves to sound authentic, and it can. Don't go away, as I'll be showing you how at the end of this video. Today I am taking a ride in Quicksilver. This Mustang was born out of a passion for preserving aviation history and showcasing the pinnacle of World War II fighter aircraft. Meticulously restored and cared for, this warbird pays tribute to the brave men and women who flew the Mustang in combat. This plane stands as a living testament to the era of aviation excellence. Restored with over 200 manufactured Mustang parts, this P51 has come out better than the factory Mustangs. Every painted element on its airframe has deep meaning, and we all know about those black and white D-Day stripes. You can check out the Quicksilver website to read more about it. But for now, let's go ahead and get into the cockpit and check out the changes for the flight model in Update 1.3. As we push back at Orofino Municipal, winds are pretty brisk out of the northwest, so we'll be headed to 26 for our departure. I have to say the Mustang is my favorite plane in the sim, and when I figured out how to get the right engine sounds in this model, I never looked back. And with Update 1.3 out on the flight model, how it handles on the ground being a lot more stable, it's my new weekend flyer. As long as the runways are 1,800 feet or longer, that is. Okay, so here we finally are in the cockpit of the P51. Externally, you can actually click on the gun ports here and check out those 50 cals, but realistically, we don't have this plane loaded. You can even put it in the weight and balance sheet right here. 2,060 rounds, 0. So the cockpit is reconfigurable. You can go ahead and take that gun sight off. You won't be needing it in Flight Simulator. Go down here and click toggle GPS 430, and you get the G430 right up here, which is very useful. My apologies in advance for maybe an out of order routine in reference or in relation to the actual P51 checklist. I've started this thing countless times, all the way dating back to the P51 Racer in Flight Simulator X, which obviously wasn't full fidelity. However, this cockpit is very familiar to me. Anyway, one thing that doesn't change is setting the parking brake. We already have that set. And starting the battery right over here on the right side, electrical panel. And we'll set our lighting. Position lights coming on. Everybody knows this thing is now manned. Recognition light set to green. Next step is going to be the trim. Right down here, we're going to set our elevator trim to 5 degrees nose up, and rudder trim is going to be, for me, this is my preference, set to 8 degrees right. According to, I believe, the manual, it's 6 degrees, but it just makes it a little bit easier rudder authority-wise to just have that thing at 0.8 for me. And the next step is now going to be the fuel selector valve. Right down here, we'll set to left mains. And the mixture is coming up to full. Prop as well. And now we'll go down to our coolant and oil vents. I'm going to be opening those. And then fuel booster is coming on. And then the mag switches are going to both. This is where we yell clear prop, but it's late, so I'm not going to be doing that. And we'll prime it for 5 seconds. Cracking that throttle open. And let's hit that starter switch. Yes, sir. And I'll set that G430 to terrain. Alright. So, flight instruments, oil and fuel pressure looking good, temperatures coming up, altimeter set to 3007, and I'll go ahead and turn our fluorescent lights on the gauges on. I like that touch, looks really nice. I don't know another cockpit actually in Flight Simulator except for I believe the Saab P17 that has fluorescent lights in the cockpit, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Alright, so altimeter check, flaps we're setting to 5. One thing about the flap dynamics, in my experience with this flight model before update 1.3 and this present update, I'd never noticed much of a difference in lift on these wings, only drag. So in my opinion, in my opinion, you could fly this thing without using the flaps once in all phases of flight, which I have already done multiple times. It's honestly, in my opinion, easier to control. Something actually weird happens if you have these flaps dropped all the way down to 6, however many degrees it is, the 6th setting, 5th setting. If you are approaching on final and your airspeed is near stall, and you pull the stick back just a little bit further, the elevator actually stalls, and that's actually only when these flaps are set to full. The elevator stalls, nose goes down, and you dart into the ground. But when you don't have the flaps set at all, when you are flaps set to 0, and you're on approach, you get down to 100 knots, you pull back on the stick, the nose goes up. The elevator doesn't stall. For some reason, the flight model characteristics are easier to control with the flaps set to 0, and that's why I fly it that way. But out of the checklist's sake, for this takeoff here, we're going to set the flaps to 5. Hopefully that's not too confusing on flap dynamic. But we are ready to taxi now over to 26. Okay, parking brake is coming off. One thing I did forget is to turn the alternator on. Super important. In case you already didn't know, pushing forward on the stick unlocks the tail wheel, and pulling back will lock it. Okay, holding short of runway 26, we're going to go ahead and do our run-up. Parking brake is set. We're going to set the RPM to 1800. Coming down to right mag. Both. Back down to right mag. Looking good. Back up to both. Parking brake's coming off. And we're ready to position and hold. Flap set to 1. Alright, with 5,000 pounds of torque, this thing is going to be trying to dart off to the left there, so it's really important to keep back pressure on the stick, lock that tail wheel, and we're only going to be increasing up to 40 inches manifold pressure until the nose tail starts to come up at around 70-80 knots. And at that point we can go ahead and start increasing our manifold pressure to our full 61 inches. That being said, let's do this. Up to 40. Getting our roll. Give a little bit of a right rudder. Now that we've got air back there, got a little bit of authority. Needles alive on airspeed, 50 knots. And we'll go ahead and bring it up to 61 and rotate. And we'll bring it back to max cruise settings, 2700 RPM, 46 inches manifold pressure. And we'll climb up out of the valley, start our left turn for a left traffic touch and go. Flaps retracted. And like I said in the beginning, handling is easier with flaps set to 0 on landing, so accordingly I'm not going to be using any flaps for this touch and go. Alright, going ahead and pulling throttle back to idle, RPM coming back up to full. We're pretty high up here, way above a normal pattern altitude, so we're going to extend our final. Alright, let's start our left turn at 170 knots. We can go ahead and lower the gear. I'll go ahead and do that when we're on final. Gear down and locked. The goal is to come over the fence at around 110 knots, touchdown at around 90. Throttle coming back up to 40. Yeah, touch and goes are a little tricky with this thing, I have to admit. Bring it up to 61. And from just feeling the speed on that touch and go, I think for this full stop landing I'm going to need to be a little slower. But overall, I really do like the handling characteristics in the air with this thing after 1.3. Definitely noticed that controlling it in maneuvers, takeoffs, it's a lot more, well, let's say consistent. It's not so snappy. I think they've done really well this time. You know what, let's make this a little bit acrobatic. We'll do an overhead brake. Just 350 miles per hour. Maximum military power. .400 miles per hour. Yep, this thing is just too much fun. Alright, power's back to idle, RPM's full. Go ahead and get this thing slowed down. Let's see if we can land at that 2,000 foot airstrip. Yeah, we're pretty high. I'm going to go ahead and crab it on the way down, giving a little bit of forward slip. 160 miles per hour, drop the gear. And we'll go ahead and level it out right here. Looking good. This time I'll try to cross the threshold at around 100 miles per hour. It's going to be really touchy. There's 100. Right on the brakes, back pressure on the stick, keeping it on the runway. So open that canopy, get some fresh air, because that was adrenaline pumping. Not too bad. Pushing forward on the stick, tail wheel is unlocked, so we can go ahead and turn off. This thing really is a blast to fly, and for me it's just hard to resist every time I see it in the hangar not to pick it. If you're into flying World War II icons, Spitfires, BF-109s, P-38s, I mean, if you fly those, you kind of have to fly the P-51 as well, and the price tag is a little high on it. However, when you're able to change the engine sounds, get them correct after update 1.3, the flight model feels authentic. Honestly, right now it feels like a worthy package, and coming up is a tutorial on how to change those engine sounds. Alright guys, here we are with 4 screens. On the top left I've got my backup file that contains, or is going to be containing, the old sound files for the Airplane Heavens P51 engine sounds. We're going to be putting them into this file. First, we're going to find the sounds we want to put into the Airplane Heavens P51. We're going to be substituting the originals with the Asobo P51 Reno Common file. So you click on that, go in here and find sound and sound AI. And what you're going to need to do is title these files to be the exact same file names as the ones that are going to be in the destination. So in Airplanes Heavens, down here we have sound and sound AI as well. So you don't really need to change much there. You just need to make sure that you're able to differentiate the originals with the new ones. So I already have the Reno sound files in my backup files, so we're just going to rename these two right here OG as the original ones and move them over to my backup file. And now take these two, which are already correctly named, and move them to Airplane Heavens. So now that we've got that done, we're going to head back to the airplane file and head down to the JSON file layout and drag that right over to, let me get these out of the way, to the MSFS layout generator. And you can find this executable file on GitHub. Hughes MD-Flyer4 created the MSF layout generator, and you can get that by just downloading the zip file here below and then placing the exe file in whichever desired folder. So you just go ahead and take the layout file, drag it right over the layout generator. Small screen pops up and it's already got it configured. Now you can just head back into Flight Simulator and test out your changes. One thing I forgot to mention is that it's probably important to shut down the simulator first and then open it back up to see those changes. I just have Flight Simulator open right now because the changes have already been implemented, just to let you know. If you guys managed to make it this far, a huge thank you from me. I know this video was a little longer, but I can't help but pay my respects to my favorite airplane. I mean, after all, it is the plane in the silhouette of my channel badge. If you've got something out of this one, help me make more by giving this one a like and follow my progress with that subscribe button. But as always, keep that blue side up and I will see you all in the next one.